What the is we doing?
All right, welcome back to episode 15. If I'm
Yes.
not mistaken. Yeah,
Yep.
it's good to have you guys back here. And today we are talking about
So today we're going to be talking about, I guess, life skills, like what are essential life skills, and more to the point, like what's essential versus what's good to have, like the
nice.
necessities, and then maybe stuff that's not really needed, but it's nice, and then other things that are completely not needed at all. And then we'll kind of just run it from there.
Cool. Before we get started, cheers.
I got a whole bottle this time.
The bottle's
I've,
empty.
I've been developing my alcohol tolerance, so now I have to drink a whole bottle.
Well, yeah, no, still doing small pitches of run, which is really good. Anyways,
Could have
let's
just
kick
cleaned out a shot glass that I have right here.
That's
Sorry.
all right. All right. So life skills. I think that's a way like broad topic. Let's kind of like funnel down
Let's
to
condense it. Yeah, let's condense it.
condense it into the most important. And you
Yeah.
like in your experience or on your perspective, what are like essential skills that you need to survive as a man? Well, I think everybody. Actually, let's generalize this as a human being.
Yeah,
What
yeah.
are some of the skills that you need to survive?
Right. So, I mean, obviously we go with the basics. Cooking. Cooking should be pretty essential, right? Other than that, that's pretty much it. Obviously, in today's society, you do need to be able to generate income so that you have a place to live. So, some sort of skill that generates money, or you can generate money from. What else? I mean, ideally, like if you know how to fight, that would be pretty good. Understanding social norms, right? So that's different, the different things. I don't know what else. There's so much. I don't want to just like condense it to just such a small amount, but there's a lot that we can cover.
Yeah, I think on today's society, like you mentioned, cooking, kind of like taking care of yourself, like physically and mentally. I think that's a like a skill to have as well. Like how you distress and just keep yourself sane. I think that's a good skill to have.
Money
That way,
management, right? That's another one.
yeah, money management is good. I think finance overall, that's kind of like one of the essential skills in today's society that you need. Like not just generating it, but it's also like keeping it and also growing it. So I think that kind of covers finance.
Right.
Now another skill, it will definitely be being organized. I think that's another skill. It kind of like translates.
Do you think that's necessary, or it's just a nice to have? Because I
Actually,
know some people that are really disorganized, but they function pretty well.
Okay, yeah. Actually, I think it's a nice to have thing.
Yeah.
I'm very organized. That's why I said.
Yeah, no, it's fine. Like it should help you be more productive, right? But it's not a necessity. Like you like making your bed in the morning. Most of the times, I don't. Doesn't really stop me from being productive.
True. Cool. What else? Let's see. Another thing too, like laundry, I think is one of those things that I hate doing, but I know I have to do. I think it's kind of essential, just because you don't want to be dirty. Like I think that goes into like taking care of yourself regarding like the shower, doing like brushing your teeth and all that routine. And I think that includes also washing your clothes and making sure you look neat. Oh, another one, I think communication. Communication is important skill to have, whether it is writing, whether it's talking. I think just the way that you communicate, the tone that you use to communicate, I think is very important, and it can help you just survive, honestly, because you need to communicate in order to, do groceries or just buy food or kind of like tell people what you need or what do you want, I think is crucial. And just to
I think
keep your
so. Just like I'm trying to condense it now and to try to make it like like broad generalizations, but then we can narrow it down to very specific points, right? So
Mhm.
like we're looking at things that overall is like your health, right? Money, right? And your ability to communicate, or
Mhm.
communication skills, social skills, like I said, health, wealth, communication, and then that's essentially it. And then from there we can start, going to the like very specific points. So like in finance, you want to have a skill. You want to
Mhm.
be good with money management. You want to be able to take the money that you have and generate more money with it, with like good investments, or understanding what investments to make, or what are investments, right? What asset classes, with your health, right? So obviously exercising, being able to cook healthy, uh, knowing how to cook,
Mhm.
and then obviously stuff like hygiene, right? So doing laundry, organizing your clothes, your bedroom, or whatever else. What else? Yeah, I
Okay.
guess that's like there's a lot. So it's kind of like a hard topic, just simply because like there's so much from it. But cover it.
One thing that kind of we overlooked, I don't, I'm not sure if it's a skill, but self-love or self-worth, I don't know what category that might go. Maybe it goes into the
Health.
health.
Yeah.
I think I don't know if it's a skill, but I think that's an important thing to have. That way you can just live and survive and
Hmm.
just not feel like shit.
Right.
Thing that comes in importance when so this happens a lot. I feel like a lot of people when they move to a different city, like a new environment, and they isolate themselves because they don't know how to get out of their comfort zone. They feel unworthy to like go out there and meet people and kind of like survive. So I
Right.
think that kind of it's an important thing to have, just because it helps you kind of like keep growing and keep pushing
Hmm.
to be better
Yeah.
and do better. I'm not sure it's a skill though. Is it a skill?
No, I mean you definitely have to have build social intelligence, and intelligence is something that you build with skills, right?
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, like again, going back to the idea of like we can kind of make it these three pillars, and then
Hmm.
health, right? So you mentioned physical health, mental health, emotional health, and then from there you can start figuring out the specific skills that you need to know for each subtopic. Um, but yeah, I definitely think that's a skill that you can learn over time. If you don't have the social acuity or the social intelligence to interact with new people, new environments, that's something that you can learn, right? Maybe either you put yourself out there, you throw yourself in the deep end, and you just like start going to social networking events, not knowing anybody, and just try to make it work and try to make new connections, um, try to meet new people, see what you can gain from that. Or you learn from somebody that does know, right? Somebody that does it pretty well. You probably have a friend, or you have an acquaintance that seems to be pretty good at navigating social circles, or just navigating the different social climates and environments, with relative ease. And then, you know, pick up stuff from there. They can become a mentor in the sense of like, hey, I don't really know how to interact with, new environments. Would you mind showing me? And in return, whatever you can offer them. Um, but yeah.
Kind of like going from there. One skill that I kind of thought about as you spoke, like surviving and just communicating and networking. Collaboration is a good skill to have in order
Mhm.
to survive. I
Yeah.
think wherever you go, whether it's like a workplace or just, family events or whatever you're trying to build, you will
Hmm.
need to collaborate with people. You will need to be able to work with other people, tolerate, set boundaries, all that good stuff that we already talked about in the past.
Hmm.
Kind of goes into collaboration.
Okay.
Because if you're a good collaborator and you know how to work with people,
Hmm.
you can build bigger and everlasting things rather than when you do it yourself. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. And then that goes to like being somebody that's good at delegating work, right?
Yeah.
Um, there's a lot of times where we find, at least for me specifically, my day to day, like there's a lot of stuff that I do that realistically, it's simple tasks that I don't really have to do. Or I have to do, but it's simple and I could have it easily done by somebody else. But maybe I'm like in the momentum of the things of my day-to-day activities, so I just end up doing it. But realistically, if I'm able to delegate, like learning the skill of delegation, I can have other people do the simplest tasks that take up a lot of time, and then I can focus my efforts on something else. Because again, I'm coming from the perspective of a manager, right? In a management position, like you have to be efficient with your time, because like the day-to-day operations, like there's so many things that can end up happening. And if you just get absorbed by everything and you don't figure out different ways, different systems, utilizing people's skill sets to for your benefit, but also for their benefit as well, you just end up losing the day, right? Because again, like imagine, so one of the things that ends up happening for me, at least working at a gym, is I need to continuously organize the floor, right? Like I need to make sure that everything is orderly, make sure everything is neat. But again, like there's a rotation of new members, new clients, like 24/7 while the gym is open. If I'm not good about delegating that work, then it's just going to be me on the floor every hour on the hour, cleaning up the gym, making sure I'm picking up the weights, making sure the bathroom looks organized, making sure the front desk looks organized. So definitely, again, and that goes more towards like the social aspect of, a pillar there, social skills, right? Delegation is definitely one of those skills that you want to have.
Yeah, that is a must. I think delegation, collaboration. I think it can take you to places. Cool. Let's go back to cooking. Do you cook? Except
I
rice
can,
and
I can chef it up. I can chef it up. It just depends on the day.
Yeah, I think that's one of the skills that personally helped me keep myself, two things, healthy and also financially stable, because you're not depending on eating out all the time, or you can balance what you put in your body, so that keeps you know exactly what you're putting in your body. So I think that skill is essential for anybody, any person, whether gender, now going into gender specific, I think I'm nice to have as a man, it is fighting, like knowing how to fight. Like,
well, I mean, like if you want to go to like the most primordial, just like the fundamentals of just existing as a human being and surviving, let's say like everything gets removed from you, get thrown in the Amazon rainforest and you have to survive. Obviously fighting is one of those things. You should be able to hunt, you should be able to cook, you should be able to make shelter. Right.
Well,
go for it.
We can translate those skills to today's world, like today's.
So that's where we're trying to get, right? So like if you layer that, like that's the foundation. What's the next level above? And again, it all really depends on where you live, because the society that you live in will dictate how you need to develop yourself. Like we don't necessarily need to know how to build a house, right? We don't necessarily need to know how to hunt. Those are nice things to have. And again, like if you go back to like the very fundamental nature of just human beings and survival, those are necessities. But again, our society and the environment we're in will dictate what we need to learn. So those things aren't needed, but they're nice to have. What's essential are, again, things like finances, like being able to manage your money well. Cooking would be a nice to have, right? Because now you can, buy cheap, make a bulk of food, and now you don't have to spend a lot of money eating out.
Okay. So from going from the basic skills that you mentioned, like building a shelter can translate into being financially stable to actually get a house. So actually have your house, or kind of like, rent it out or own it. I think that is a skill regardless. Like even in today's society, you can translate it into, like a direct one-to-one relationship to being financially able to have a house, because there's a lot of people who are not able to do that. That's what we have the issue with homelessness, So that's one. Now, hunting and gathering can translate to cooking. Now that can be either like be financially stable to actually have enough money to buy groceries, but
Mhm.
also be able to cook your food.
Mhm.
That way you keep yourself healthy, you keep yourself organized and financially stable on that. And now fighting can translate. Actually, fighting, I think that's still a skill that especially as a man, you still need to have, because you don't
Yeah.
know in this society what's gonna happen out in the streets. Like living here
I
in New
mean,
York.
in today's society, like fighting would be the equivalent to understanding and how to use firearms, right? Because
Mm,
that's the weapon of choice in today's society. Like you'd
true.
want to know hand-to-hand combat because not every place is going to allow firearms. Having both would be ideal, right? And just having a fundamental understanding of what these things are, what they're capable of doing, and how to use them. Um, Something like driving, right? That's
Mm.
pretty essential in today's society. It's not needed, but if you know the skill, that makes you relatively valuable for traveling, right? If you want to travel somewhere, go.
Cool. Kind of like just before you finish that, that's actually a skill. It's let's kind of like generalize that, and it's kind of like orientation, being able to know where you are and kind of like be able to move forward. I mean, in today's society, you have Google Maps, but sometimes even knowing how to use Google Maps can be really useful skill. Like
Yeah,
even if it's driving, taking the bus, or walking, or just biking, being able to move from point A to point B, I think that's a good skill to have.
yeah,
What is
navigation, right? Like
navigation?
if you know how to navigate, like again, we rely on stuff like Google Maps and GPS, but if we didn't have that, how would you get from point A to point B, right?
Mhm.
We developed in the past, we had things like compasses, but I know most people don't know how to use that. Um,
Well, I
Before
remember.
that, go for it.
Oh, finish.
No, so I'm just saying, like we have maps, right? Like you have like an actual road map. Some maps were really basics. Other maps became really sophisticated. Like, do you know how to traverse that?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think now in today's society, just so that if you look at a movie from like the 90s or like 80s or even before that, you see people relying on maps to kind of like drive from one place to another. And but I feel like people used to be more intelligent in the sense because they would be able to memorize kind of like the path to go somewhere. Like
Oh,
if you
you
speak
just remember
to your parents.
mentioned something, memorization, right?
Mm,
Nowadays, that's a skill that pretty much nobody has. Like, you don't have to remember shit. Um, you can just jot it down on your phone, and that's it. You don't have to remember phone numbers. Like, I only know a couple phone numbers. Before, I used to know a lot more phone numbers, but that's not something that's needed anymore. But if we lose technology, what are you going to use?
like there you go. Yeah. Oh, that was one of the topics, conspiracy theories. Ooh,
Uh,
I just
we got to mark
remembered.
that down.
All right, cool. That's a good skill actually, memorization. Because like looking back, like even like whenever I'm driving with my dad, I rely so much on Google Maps. But whenever I go to Ecuador, some of the streets are not as sim as are not well, defined
Yeah, they're not
into.
coordinated well in the GPS and all that, right?
Correct. Yeah. So just reading the signs and knowing where you're going, it's really good skill to have, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, like going back with my dad, like my dad, whenever he drives, he doesn't rely too much on GPS. He just like says, "Oh, this is route 50 or 40," and then he just goes,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's incredible. Like people memorize those things.
I mean,
But
for us, it's incredible because we use technology. But for
yeah,
somebody like your father or my father, like they were used to just reading signs on the highways or on the roads to get from one place to the other. Most people
hmm,
can't do that anymore.
cool. Yeah, but cool. Okay, so we cover health, we cover finance.
Mhm.
What was the other thing? Communication.
Social intelligence.
So
I don't like it. Really,
social.
just depends on how you want to categorize it. But just some form of social acuity, social intelligence, social standing. Right.
Social awareness. I think that's being aware of your social surroundings, just like the social circle of where you are, I think is important because you
Mhm.
can go into a place and it's not just energy, but you just feel the dynamics of the room. And I tell you this because I was telling you yesterday I went to a networking event and you
Mhm.
can feel the dynamic and people like, like kind of like mix and matching, and people talking to certain people and then other people, and it's usually based on age.
Right.
A lot of variables play in place when you're in social events. I think
Yeah.
knowing the cues, knowing who, it's open for approaching or open to talk, and knowing when to leave and how to leave, leaving a good impression, I think it's really, really good skill to have. So social awareness, I think, in today's modern society, is a must have. I think it's important.
That goes to another thing, right? So social awareness is one thing, but you mentioned like, people congregate based on age, right? And that's usually based off of, likes and preferences, right? So, you and me, we can pretty much chat about anything because we're relatively the same age. We grew up, kind of watching the same stuff or kind of experiencing life in a similar way. But when you compare, our life to somebody that's, 60, 70 years old or 50, 60, 70, it's different. Like the way they grew up is different. What they utilize is different. So it makes it difficult to be able to like connect with these people, right? And for that reason, that's why we tend to gravitate towards, people that are similar to us. But for the most part, that's something that we can bypass. And it's something that you should bypass by, picking up more life experience, not necessarily through just existing in life, right? Like just getting older, but going out and getting more experience in terms of, traveling or, reading books or watching documentaries, learning from other people that are older than you, right? You have usually people like your grandparents, older siblings, because now you'll be able to touch and dive deep into different aspects of life with older people and get more knowledge and experience from these older people. They can be like mentors to you. And then when you're in the social networking event, you're not just, only funneling to the people that you feel comfortable with. You'd be able to have conversations with anybody, right? And then the more open you're able to have these conversations, the more opportunities will come your way. As opposed to the people that are just like, closed off. They just stand in a corner. They don't talk to anybody because they don't feel comfortable because nobody's like similar to them.
Right. So kind of like going from there, I still think that's social awareness, because I'm not saying that you don't have to speak with people who doesn't look like you or who are not in your same age range. And it's more of a what type of questions to ask. So you have to be aware on what are you talking about, like the topics that you can speak with this person. And that comes to being aware of their body language, the way that they react about certain questions that you ask them, building a report even before you start the conversation. I think it's very important, because yesterday, and I think we talked about this on one of the episodes, like one of my favorite questions whenever I go to these events is asking them like, hey, what's your story? And that tells a lot about a person. And yesterday I asked like 5 or 6 people about that same question. And I think I was known by the guy who asked these questions. And I think that's one way that I stand out. So building that report and just, whatever, wherever you are, I feel like that question itself makes them think about themselves, and that way they tell you the parts that they want to share with you.
Right.
And that way you just build a report, and then you just like go from there, and then you start talking and you start connecting, and it's kind of like a domino effect. So use that. I think that's kind of like the icebreaker, the best icebreaker that you can have.
For sure, because again, like that'll start giving you a window into people's lives, and they'll start talking about themselves, telling you what they want you to know about them, and then you can start building from there tangentially based off of whatever they're telling you, right? So as you ask them that question, they tell you that they're interested or they had an interest back in the day in X, like they like cooking or they played the sport or they like this genre of music. Okay, so like tell me a little bit more about that. Like, why do you like it? Like, why were you into that? Etc. Right. And then from there you jump into something else. And now you're building this rapport with somebody where you're not really talking too much. They're the one talking. And again, that goes back to just like life skills. You become the likable person. People can gravitate towards you. You will see that people gravitate towards you simply because they feel like they have this connection with you. When realistically, you were just asking the right questions, right?
Exactly.
And that goes to building your network and being able to socialize. And then from there, you can translate that and utilize that if you ever want to build your own business, or if you need help doing this thing, you know, this lawyer because you met at this networking event, right? Etc.
Great. Yeah, I think that kind of covers most of the skills that we mentioned. So cooking, very important. Social awareness, super important as well. In finance, I think in today's society, finance is one of those things that needed to, get shelter, get food, and just live a lifestyle that you want to live. Now,
I mean, you can pick up all these skills if you want, but it's going to take you a really long time.
What do you mean?
So like the finance allows you to bypass necessarily learning like these skills, right? So like, again, I go back to building shelter. You can technically learn how to build a house on your own, right? Like you can learn how to get the materials. You can then learn how to put the materials together and then build yourself a home. But again, in today's society, you don't need to do that. You can bypass all that by having the finance skills, right? Money management, buying assets, building on that. And then you can actually just have somebody do that for you. And again, that goes back to delegation, right? Like you could be the person that does it, but if you're understanding of who's good at what, then you can pay somebody to do that for you. That's it.
Yeah, I think that pretty much covers it. Unless you have something to add. Like, what is a nice to have in your opinion?
Again, it depends on the perspective, right? Like a nice to have for us would be like being able to fight, right? Or having weapons training, like firearms training. I mean, it'd be pretty cool if I could build my own house, if I know how to do that. But again, like there's a lot of skills that come into wanting to do that thing. So you have to pick up all those skills, take time to learn them, etc. But yeah, I think those are some of like the basic ones.
You think nice to have, it will go down into like being organized, being, responsible, being a man of your word.
Having integrity. That's another way to say that.
Yeah, that's a good one. Actually, having integrity might be an important thing to be. Amazing.
Oh, extremely. If you're not somebody that does what you say, means what you say, you just become somebody that nobody trusts. And then when you are not trustworthy, then you have nobody to rely on because nobody relies on you. So that's it.
We can fit that into social awareness, like the integrity that you have. Okay, so yeah, being organized, I think it's a good one, just because you can be that kind of translates in a lot of things of your day to day. With your time, with your place, with your habitat. But yeah, another thing too is orientation. I think it's a nice to have. But all right,
By
cool.
orientation, you mean navigation, right?
Navigation, yeah, navigation.
Yeah.
Navigations. Potato. But anyways, I think that kind of covers it. Interesting topic. I don't know where, but yeah, cool. Anything to add up?
No, that's it. Cheers.
Cheers.
For my
See you
bottle.
in the next one.
Peace.
This is a conversation between friends.
None of what is said here should be taken as legal advice.
We are not experts in any way.
Take what resonates and leave the rest.